Hello. So we're on day 4 now. So hopefully from yesterday's video you've got some ideas of the setting and you've looked at the borrowers and you've thought about all the things around your house that you could use for different things, just really small. So what we're doing today is we're either writing a setting description or we're editing the one we've done to add paragraphs in and all the checklists that we talked about yesterday. But hopefully you've got a picture to work from or something like that that you've maybe created either in your mind or physically. I've seen some things made of Lego and some lovely ideas. It's a great thing to do. So, and I cannot wait to share those with you all. So I thought first of all we'd have a quick recap of the video and just use this time to think about what's around the room and what has she used. So here there is a framework with a ring dangling and the light creates like a night light. And you can see there's toothpicks and pins. It's creating this lovely element. And you can see here there are Christmas lights and there's a tiny little candle. So if you haven't gone back and had a look already, you're more than welcome to. So here, the ways of turning off the lights. So, by all means, have a look through the whole video. There's lots of different snippets where you can see the living room and her bedroom, and also when they go into the town, and you can see lots of different things being used, which is really where I've got this idea from of the setting. So I'm going to take you now to just remind you before I start of my checklist that I'm working to. So it's good to either have this printed out or to keep looking back at it when you're creating your setting description. So, did I include an introduction, describe what can be seen, describe what can be heard, describe what can be smelt, describe what can be felt, describe the atmosphere and mood, and use figurative language to create effect. Now, I've systematically gone back and had a look at this and added things in. And it might not be perfect now, but it's a good start and I can start editing it and moving it around. This is not my final piece. I will definitely be editing because it's a really good skill to use. So already I've had to come back to it and think, oh, I haven't included that. And I've added different things in. So let's have a look and I'll just read this to you. And I've highlighted some things. Have a look while I'm reading and see if you can spot what I've highlighted in the different colours. So I've got my character description here and I'm going to start off at my setting description. So in the corner of the farmhouse kitchen there was a grandfather clock, which always stood proudly supporting the family through generations of human beings. Deep underneath the floorboards lived, already mixing up my tenses, so I'm going to read through it and concentrate throughout, and I might have to make some more changes. So, deep underneath the floorboards lived an altogether different scene. Mr. and Mrs. Dust's home. Then I've got a new paragraph, and we'll discuss that in a bit. On the walls, repeated in various colours, hung several portraits of Queen Victoria as a girl. These were postage stamps, borrowed some years ago from a stamp box on the desk in the office. There was a ring box, padded inside with a lid open, which they used as an armchair in the corner. Full stop. See, every time I read it, I make changes, and it's really important that you do the same. Every time you read something, look at it constructively. Ask your parents, ask other family members to have a read, and don't take offence if they want to change little elements of it. Or even if you don't decide to change it, but you have a real think and make sure that whether you do or don't. In this case, I definitely needed to. Long sentences. So, a glass cleaning cloth lay out as a rug in the centre of the room, and a makeup puff neatly tucked into an old sardine tin served as a soft sofa, which really finished off the room. They all relished the smell that would take over their home, especially on Sundays when the human beings would always cook something marvellous. That was the day they ate like kings. There was always top-notch borrowing to be had on Sundays. The Dusts always had to be especially careful on other days not to be too loud, as it was only on Sundays when the kitchen would be full of people, and the chattering would always go on for hours. The rest of the week, the kitchen would be a much quieter affair, and Etna was taught from an early age that their living room was for whispering, because their living room was directly below the kitchen of the main house. Etna's room was even more colourful, adorned on each side with coloured pencils and crowns, the type you might get in Pizza Hut with the children's menu. All lovingly constructed by Chris and Helen Dust, who had lashed them together using little rubber bands when they first learnt of the arrival of their daughter. The floor was a shiny, sparkling sea, which flickered as you walked over it. The shiny football cards, long since borrowed, had proved to aid Etna in her reading from an early age. In the corner, underneath a polished milk bottle top mirror, was a little writing desk made from bottle tops and a stool fashioned from a champagne cork. On the opposite wall lay a sardine tin bed frame, and directly perpendicular to that there lived a chest of drawers made of matchboxes with a huge brush that was once an attachment for an electric tooth cleaner Mr. Dust had borrowed many moons ago. Etna despaired of the four colourful walls and felt that they were closing in fast, like a Coke can being crushed. In reality, the Dust had moved these walls several times since the birth of their child to give her as much room as they could spare, but Etna longed for adventure, and as she sat at her writing desk, using the giant lead from an IKEA pencil, she wrote in her diary. Okay, so you can see, not quite there, still lots of improvements to be made, and definitely some full stops and capital letters that I need to put in throughout, and I'm going to keep reading that and keep editing it as I go through. And I'm not saying it will ever be perfect, but it will be a lot better. So each time you read it, make sure you're picking up on all the things that don't quite read smoothly. So, any guesses on the yellow writing? Stood proudly supporting. Lay. Lived. These are all examples of personification, where I've taken it's called an inanimate object, an object that doesn't live, like a grandfather clock, and said that it's standing proudly supporting the family. I've taken a sardine tin bed frame and say it's laying down. It lay. Lived a chest of drawers. The chest of drawers didn't live. It was there. It was put there. But by saying it lived, it's using personification in my setting description. So that's a really good thing to use. Also, I have got like kings. I've got the floor was a shiny sparkling sea. And I've got like a can being crushed. So 2 of these are examples of similes. So like kings and like a Coke can being crushed. So it's when something is like or as. So it is like a Coke can. We ate like kings. That is a simile, and they're really good to get in. It's where you compare one thing with another thing, explaining the meaning a bit. And the floor was a shining, sparkling sea. No, it wasn't. It was a floor. Actually, when you read on, their football cards stuck together. Football shinies stuck together. But by saying it was a shiny, sparkling sea, you're imagining a sea sparkling maybe in the sunlight as it goes out to the horizon. So you're creating that in somebody's mind, and that's a really good thing to add to your work. I've also highlighted the word adorned because it's quite a good word to use. Adorned just means worn. So again, it's kind of personification again. So Etna's room was even more colourful, adorned on each side. It means that there was on each side coloured pencils. But I thought I'd highlight that word because it was a nice one to fit in. So remember, you've got your word frames, you've got your setting description checklist, which when we go down, most of these things can be ticked off. And if not, I can now go back and look at it because I've got a start point. And what I would suggest is that you ticked your first one. You might have a brother or sister or an adult who might like to tick, once they've read your work, the second one. And then finally, it says teacher, but at the moment, we've got the teachers of mum and dad. So an adult can tick off this button. And if they circle it and don't tick it, that means you've got to look through your work and try and add that in. Because remember, editing is key to all of this. So, love you to then write this up. Now, you can either word process or write freehand. I've had some lovely examples of character descriptions handed in or sent in. And then maybe pick your favourite paragraph and read it out. Now, what isn't in the setting description checklist is paragraphs. Now, this would be a really good thing to show. So you can see I've got my clear introduction. I've talked about the sitting room. I've then talked about the smells coming down from the kitchen, so one of the senses. I've then talked about Etna's room. And finally, I've talked about how she feels at present. And actually, I've got some movement in there, which is perfectly fine. But that adds to the setting description because it goes into the describing the atmosphere and mood. I haven't quite got there because I haven't described the parents, but I've started describing Etna's mood. So use all of those features. I hope that helps. I hope we all get some really good writing from this. Remember, using those word lists, using the setting description checklists, you can use some ideas from what I've written. You can magpie ideas from the film. You've all had some wonderful ideas about how to make different items that you would need in a household from smaller items. So I didn't have any Lego in mind, and that's maybe something I need to look at because that's a really good idea when we've talked about that. And also, I haven't described a bathroom or a kitchen of the Dust's house, but Alex came up with a great idea of using an egg cup as like a wash basin or a sink. So there's some really nice ideas. Okay, lovely. So I hope that's helped, and I look forward to seeing all your wonderful setting descriptions along with your character descriptions.